Hi guys, if Reform UK voters thought they would send the likes of Lee Anderson, Richard Tice and Nigel Farage to Parliament to hold the government's feet to the fire, they will be slightly disappointed. So the MP for Brexit backing Boston and Skegness tried to suggest that renewable energy will be more expensive than fossil fuels and listed off some of the rising costs. However, it begs the question, who does Richard represent here? His constituents? Or perhaps a guy called Jeremy Hoskin, who gave the party £500,000 in 2020, somebody who has invested heavily in the fossil fuel industry. Anyway, Ed Miliband was on hand to put him back in his box.
Deputy Speaker, will the Secretary of State actually, who's obsessed with renewable energy, be honest with the British people? Because the truth is that the offshore wind turbines bid today are some 20% above current prices. The floating offshore wind is some 3 times the current prices. His own department, Madam Deputy Speaker, say that actually this requires subsidies of some £1.5 billion a year. That's before the extra transmission costs, before the constraint payments, before the compensation payments for blighting the countryside of my constituents, and before the cost of backup when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. So why would the Secretary of State be honest and tell the truth that renewable energy is more expensive, not cheaper?
Secretary of State.
I have to say that I'm interested in the honourable gentleman's intervention because his manifesto is basically for higher bills and to make people poorer. And you don't need to look into the crystal ball. You just need to look at the record, because the truth is that the cost of living crisis, the energy bills crisis, casts a long shadow in this country. And the energy bills crisis was not caused by our dependence on renewables. It was caused by our exposure to fossil fuels. And he just needs to understand this very basic point, which is that whether fossil fuels are produced in this country or internationally, they are sold on the international market. And that's why the British people paid the price and government forked out £94 billion. And the only way to get off the roller coaster of international gas markets and take back control is to become a clean energy superpower.
Well said. I love the take back control. Now, my only disappointment is that Ed didn't mention the subsidies. So Richard Tice mentioned, look, there's £1.5 billion in subsidies going to go to renewable energies. Do you know how much the fossil fuel industry receives in subsidies every year? £10 billion. They're making massive profits and they're still receiving subsidies of £10 billion. So 1 billion is nothing compared to £10 billion. During a cost of living crisis, how is it acceptable for companies that are making massive profits to still receive massive subsidies? Now, what's important going forward is to decouple from the gas market. If you're more reliant on renewables, you're less reliant on gas. And then, as Ed Miliband has pointed out here, you're not suffering the roller coaster issue because when gas prices go down eventually, there's an incentive for the government just to rely on gas. But then once again, when they go back up again, they'll suffer the consequences of that. So you need to move to something more stable, something that you're in control of. And it's important that renewables are decoupled from gas prices so that they can provide cheaper energy to people, more reliable energy. And this is about not just reliability, but about cost as well, and security. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.